and to Daniel, but let's be honest, friends, it goes out to anyone and everyone that this would apply to. That's the depth of love that God has for his own. That, again, let's break it down. That the first day that one sets one's heart, in other words, the first day, from the moment that one becomes saved, or from the moment that one sets out trying to understand this Word of God and follow it and learn from it and be touched by it and live by it, from that very first moment that they do that and that they humble themselves before God, saying, God, I don't know anything. Father, I know nothing, but help me, teach me, show me the right way, give me wisdom from your word, give me wisdom in my life so that I may serve you better. That when one does that, seeking out God with all their heart, humbling themselves before him, asking for his assistance, repenting when they do mess up, that you think that doesn't get God's attention? You think that doesn't touch his heart? From the very first moment that Daniel began to pray, his prayer was heard. Now, it took actually, again, I mentioned this 21 days that Daniel would be in mourning and fasting and so forth, that there was a connection here. And now we're going to see what the connection was. Verse 13, but the prince of the kingdom of Persia withstood me 21 days. There's the connection. 3 weeks. But lo, Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me, and I remained there with the kings of Persia. Now, you have to understand, or you should understand, you should recognize that, again, if we're talking about, I believe, Gabriel, then we're talking about an angel, and someone who is a flesh king or a flesh prince of Persia could not affect an archangel of God. Could not war or could not be in conflict, not with any effect, not with any success anyway, with an archangel of God. But Satan perhaps could achieve that, inasmuch as he also, of course, is supernatural, and it would be, you can reference obviously Ephesians chapter 6, we war not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spiritual powers and darkness and wickedness in high places. And so it is that I believe he was withheld or delayed by a conflict with Satan from being able to get to Daniel, to help Daniel, to communicate with Daniel, to interpret this for Daniel. And by the way, this verse, or this I, Bullinger here in a companion Bible mentions that the I is superfluous, meaning that it doesn't need to be there or it shouldn't be there. So reading it without the I, and in that context, we have Michael, one of the chief princes, came to help me and remained there with the kings of Persia. In other words, what really happened is Michael stayed back, allowing Gabriel to go to Daniel. Verse 14. Now I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people and when? In the latter days. For yet the vision is for many days. In other words, again, Daniel, this vision that you had isn't for your people today or your people a few years from now, but it will be in the end time, in the last generation. Verse 15, and when he had spoken such words unto me, I set my face toward the ground, and I became dumb. I mean, he was tongue-tied in the Hebrew. Verse 16, and behold, one like the similitude of the sons of men touched my lips, and then I opened my mouth and spake, and said unto him that stood before me, O my Lord, by the vision my sorrows are turned upon me, and I have retained no strength. And again, he was in a period of mourning and fasting for 21 days, because from what he could understand of the vision, he knew it wasn't good. And again, he cared about his people. Verse 17, For how can the servant of this my Lord talk with this my Lord? For as for me, straightway there remained no strength in me, neither is there breath left in me. I mean, he took his breath away. Again, the vision and the rigors of this supernatural experience. 18, Then there came again and touched me, one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me. Obviously, again, this would be an angel. 19, And said, O man, greatly beloved. Again, greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be unto thee. Be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened, and said, Let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Again, instantly, at the power of God, or the power of a messenger, an angel of God, to deliver strength. And by the way, this idea of strength is strength to endure. Again, Bollinger mentions here it comes from the Hebrew word hazak, and it means, or it relates to strengthened for endurance. Being strengthened to last the distance, being strengthened to withstand anything that comes down the road between now and the end of time as we know it, or as we think of it, until Christ returns. And again, obviously waiting on him, patiently enduring, rather than falling to the first Messiah, so-called Messiah, that shows up. Verse 20, Then said he, Knowest thou wherefore I come unto thee? And now will I return to fight with the Prince of Persia, and again you might say with Satan. And when I am gone forth, lo, the Prince of Grecia shall come. Again, some of this gets back into what is rather ancient history for us. It would still be future yet for Daniel. But again, if you've been listening to these podcasts, or if you know the book of Daniel at all, again, you can go back to that great image, once again from the second chapter of this book of Daniel, and the sequence of kingdoms that would come about from Nebuchadnezzar's Babylonian kingdom to the kingdom of the Medes and Persians to the kingdom of Greece that would follow the kingdom of the Medes and Persians. And Daniel at this time in the kingdom of the Medes and Persians. And again, Greece in that sequential order would be the next great one world power. Verse 21, But I will shew thee that which is noted in the scripture of truth, and there is none that holdeth with me in these things, but Michael, your prince. And now we'll go ahead, and we will got about 5-6 minutes. We'll dip into the 11th chapter here in Daniel. And again, this is a backdrop, the 10th chapter, for the vision. This is now the detailed kind of play-by-play explanation of the vision that Daniel would have. Chapter 11, verse 1. Also I, this actually being, I believe, the Archangel Gabriel talking, also I, in the first year of Darius the Mede, even I, stood to confirm and to strengthen him. Verse 2, And now will I shew thee the truth. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all, and by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Bollinger mentions historically 3 kings in Persia, Cambius, the pseudo-Smerdis, and Darius Hystaspes. Again, those were being the 3 kings of Persia. The fourth would basically wind up being Alexander the Great, or at least this mighty king that we get to in the next verse, I believe historically was Alexander the Great, verse 3. And a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion, and do according to his will. And Bollinger, again, in a companion Bible, which I'm reading from, refers to this mighty king as the he-goat. Again, historically, Alexander the Great was that he-goat. Historically, once again, the ram with two horns was the kingdom, the combined kingdom of Medo-Persia, and the he-goat was Alexander the Great in the Grecian kingdom. But anyway, verse 4, and when he shall stand up, again, this mighty king and this he-goat, his kingdom shall be broken, and shall be divided toward the four winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up even for others beside those. And again, historically, Alexander the Great's kingdom was divided in four parts, and it was ruled over not by his children, not by his posterity, but by generals within his army. And that is something that happened, which would be future to Daniel, history to us. But we need to understand, too, that this is a prophecy, and this is a vision that concerns the latter days that we are now living in. So we're talking about also, inasmuch as Alexander the Great was a type for what we have now today. And again, when you talk about these four winds, again, from the book of Revelation, I believe it's the 7th chapter where we have these four winds mentioned, among other places, and they bring about the ends on this earth. And they're held back until that time that everyone who is to be sealed with the seal of God, with truth from this Lord, will be sealed. Once that sealing is complete, then those four winds are set loose upon the earth. Verse 5, and the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, and have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. Now, when we talk about the king of the south and the king of the north, we have to try to nail this down geographically. Everything is relative, directional-wise, geography-wise, in relation to Jerusalem and the land of Judea. So the king of the south would be south of Jerusalem, south of Israel, if you will. The king of the north would naturally be north of Israel and north of Jerusalem in the land of Judea. And so the king of the south, basically, historically speaking for us, it was the Ptolemaic kingdom, and that primarily consisted of Egypt. And the king of the north was the Seleucid kingdom, or Seleucid dynasty, and that consisted of primarily, I suppose you could say, Iraq and Iran as we know it today. But here we have the king of the south shall be strong, and one of his princes, and he shall be strong above him, have dominion. His dominion shall be a great dominion. Verse 6, and in the, well, you know what, actually, I suppose I better stop there. I've got about 50 seconds, and the 6th verse is somewhat lengthy to even read through, so we'll go ahead and stop there. We made it through the 10th chapter. Like I said, dipped our toes into the 11th chapter. That's not a bad place to stop anyway. It's before we get into some of the real meat. So we'll pick it up next time. Until then, everybody have a great day, a great week. I'll be back, of course, as soon as I can. Try to make an effort to be back fairly soon, sooner than last time, certainly. And take care. God bless. Get in this word, stay in this word, seek wisdom from it, and be blessed.
1, 2, 3, 4.